Hello, everyone. I'm very excited today that we're going to be talking about something that's become more important than ever in business communication: authentic storytelling. With trust at an all-time low, and with AI now able to generate content in seconds, many leaders and entrepreneurs are asking an important question. How do we stay efficient with these powerful tools without losing our authentic voice? Well, my guest today is a global expert in business storytelling and the author of her eighth book, her newest book, which is called Story Intelligence: The Craft of Authentic Storytelling Made Smarter with AI. And it's getting rave reviews in her home country of Australia. And I'm sure that's going to gather steam to North America as well. Gabrielle Dolan teaches leaders how to communicate with clarity, connect emotionally, and build trust through real stories. In this conversation, we're going to look at why authentic stories matter more than ever in the age of AI, and how each of us can use storytelling to strengthen our relationships in business. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be talking to you about all things storytelling.
Well, I have to tell you, your email that you sent to me introducing yourself, you had me at what was the subject line? How to be less
Be-
shit at storytelling. I loved it. It was like, okay, I got to read more. So I could tell she had a sense of humor. I could tell that you had a sense of humor, and that you, in the rest of the email, that you were passionate about what you do. So I was really glad to be able to connect with you. So, Gabrielle, you've spent many years helping leaders use storytelling in business. What first made you realize how powerful stories could be in professional communication? Let's start back there.
Yeah, so that sort of almost takes me back about 25 years ago. So I was working in corporate Australia. I was working at one of Australia's largest banks, and I was in senior management roles. So I led a team, but also in the last couple of years, I was in change management roles. So leading, digital transformation. Not that we called it digital transformation back then. I think we just called it technical change.
Sure.
But
It
in
was
my
minimal, and it was
yeah,
minimal compared to today. Yes.
yeah, exactly, and it took so long, so much longer. It was in that capacity of change management. So you think of the job, you're about to implement all these changes. You go out to the business unit and you got to explain why the change is good, and of course every business unit doesn't want the change to come because it's such a disruption. What I started to notice is when I shared a story that addressed some of their concerns, they seemed to get the message better. They seemed to sort of, their defenses went down a bit. Now, it wasn't a silver magical bullet,
Right.
but I remember thinking, I'm thinking this storytelling business. And then I also started to notice, like I would see people speak, and the really, really great presenters, what they were doing was sharing stories. And then I started to notice that some of the great leaders that I saw, they were sharing stories. So because I had a lot of experience in designing and actually delivering leadership programs, I had done that previously. I remember thinking, I think storytelling's a skill. I think it's an absolute leadership skill. It's a communication skill. It's an influencing skill. I think I'm going to teach people how to do it. Now,
So it was like
that
an
was
aha moment for you, the light
well,
went.
it was a bit of a sliding doors couple of
Oh,
years
okay.
aha moment. It was sort of like, yeah, I think this works, and then I noticed stories, I think it worked. But the real aha moment, like the moment I decided, was I had been applying for roles at the bank. They were going through, one of their many restructures, and I applied for the global head of learning, and I didn't get the job. And it was in that moment, and I still remember the person that told me I didn't get the job. I had worked with her, and she said, "What do you think you're going to do?" And I went,
Huh.
"I think it's time to go. I think it's time to go." And I sort of, like, not in that moment, I came up with a big
Yeah.
business plan, but I
Right.
thought, I'm going to give. I truly believe storytelling is a skill. It's like I said,
It
communication
is. I
leadership
agree.
skill.
Yeah.
And I think I could teach people how to do it. Now, at the time, our children were 2 and 5, and part of me thought, I'm just going to give this a go. I'm going to see if this is a valid,
Yeah.
job to teach people storytelling. And if it's not, and if it doesn't take off, I'll be home with the kids for a while and
Yeah.
I'll just come back and get another job when
Yeah.
the
Figure
time's
it out.
right. So
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. And it'd be fair to say, 21 years later, with storytelling, everyone's talking about
Yeah.
storytelling. The Wall Street Journal wrote a article a few months ago that the term storyteller is the fastest growing job title, um,
Wow.
which both part of me says, "See, I told you."
That's
part
brilliant,
of
though.
me part of me is I told you, but then part of me thinks, oh, please don't outsource storytelling across your organization to one department. That concerns me about that concept. But yeah, it'd be fair to
Okay.
say it worked out.
Yes, it did. So your new book introduces this concept of story intelligence. How do you define that term, and why do you believe it's such an important skill today?
Yeah, so this is the eighth book I've written on
Yeah.
like storytelling and real communication. And my previous book that I wrote about 4 years ago, I truly believe, Janice, that would be the last book I would write on storytelling.
Okay.
I was like, there's only so much stuff you can write on storytelling.
Right.
But it was probably about 18 months ago, I would be running, storytelling workshops, which I do, and I would increasingly get people ask me, will AI replace storytelling? And the fact that people were even asking that question horrified me. It was like, no.
Yeah.
And then I would be going, not only will it not replace it, but our authentic stories are needed now more than ever.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and then I had people ask me, can you use AI to help with your stories?
Right.
And my initial response was no, no,
No, you're a
absolutely
purist.
not.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not, that's not happening on my watch type thing. And then I thought, well, if you're the sort of so-called expert on this, you better like at least experiment with it. And
Sure.
I was disturbingly surprised how good AI was with stories, but it was missing something, and I
Yeah.
and I go into that in the book.
Yes.
But the premise of the book, then, so therefore, the
Yeah.
premise of the book is, in a world of AI generated content, there's so much AI generated content, and we're also in a world of distrust as well. That our authentic stories are needed now more than ever.
Mhm.
Um, but AI used wisely, wisely being the key word here, used
Mhm.
wisely, AI can be your creative partner when it comes to
Mhm.
storytelling. But again, it's used wisely, and we might go into that a
Yeah,
bit
we
later.
will. We will go into that. But um the thing I just on a high level here, the thing that I notice is especially on social media because they're destroying the stuff that they put out there, especially I see on Facebook and sometimes on Instagram. You have to be very uh discerning
Mm,
and really start to say, is this real or is it not real? Because some of
yeah.
them are really good. But then
Yes.
some of them are much more, you've got this voice that is very robotic and that's not a real voice. But um, I think you really have to be careful. And that's the part that's driving everyone crazy too, is like, was
Yeah.
it real?
Yeah, and so it's so the latest. I don't know if you follow the Edelman report. They do a report on trust every year. They've been doing it for 20 years, and this last year was their 20th year, and the trust is at its lowest. So
Right.
they do trust in across organizations, across media, and even
Okay.
employees, right? So trust is at its all-time lowest. But so you got that, and then you've got the combination of AI generated content. Now, whether it be deep fake videos or just
Right.
content, like
Content.
someone's story,
Yeah.
but we're now constantly saying, "Is that true?" Like,
No, I
I,
know.
I find myself even watching video. I saw a video the other day of an elephant rescuing a tiger by the tiger jumping up on his back, and part of me's going, is that AI? Like, and I could not. And so for the
Yeah.
life of me now, I don't know whether that was true or not. And then you read the
Yeah.
comments, and half the comments are go, "Oh my God, that's so lovely,"
Yes.
and
And the
others
other
going,
half,
"AI,
yeah.
AI, AI," and
Ex-
you go, "I don't know." So we are now dealing with everything we consume. We
Yeah.
have got this cynical lens over it, rightly so, and maybe
Yeah.
not cynical, but maybe just judging,
Yeah.
is this true or not?
Well, I think we
Now,
have
we have to.
yeah. Yeah.
Like we have to. And
Yeah.
like I was talking to someone the other day, like in our generation, like our parents,
Yes.
they got their news from like probably the one newspaper they read
Or
and the one news channel they
yeah.
watched it at 6 o'clock at night, and that was
That's
it.
it.
And that was gospel to them. I was
And
like,
when they went to the movies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They'd have
Yeah.
a little bit of news,
Yeah.
but that was,
That was
and
it.
sometimes they would go, but it was in the Herald, so
Right.
it's true, or I
Right.
saw it on the news, so
Yeah.
it is true. Now, of
Yeah.
course, we can't have that certainty on anything,
No.
so there is a judgment over everything. So to me, and people go, when I'm speaking to individuals, I go, you can't control what other people do. If
Right.
people are putting out fake stuff out there, you can't control that, but you can certainly control what you put out.
Exactly.
And yeah, and the one thing I do is I teach people storytelling, obviously, but I
Mhm.
always say it's so much more powerful. It's easier to find your own stories than to make up stories, and it's so much more powerful. So yeah, we could definitely use AI. I'm not saying don't use AI. I use
Right.
AI, but we've got to do it wisely.
So, I know myself included when I do play around with it, and I am going to ask you about the different um where is it? Just a minute. The different
Oh,
types.
and you asked me about my definition of storytelling. So like
Yes.
what
Yes.
actually is it? Sorry, I
Story
forgot to say that. So
intelligence. Okay.
So I love the title of the book, Story
Yeah.
Intelligence. It sort of reminds me of emotional intelligence, but there's no definition of what story
Right.
intelligence
Right.
means. So the definition I wrote, it's a bit. I've had people say to me it's too long. It's like, whatever, I don't care. You
Go
when you
for it.
make up your own definition, you make it shorter. But like this is mine, and it's the ability to purposefully and skillfully use authentic storytelling to communicate with clarity and to connect, engage, and inspire. And I think the main, so yeah, if you want to put it in a nutshell, it's how you use it really skillfully and
Mhm.
with purpose. So you're communicating much more, in a much more effective way. That's not only clear, helps people
Mhm.
understand the message, but actually engages them and
Yeah.
connects with them.
And it is you say it's a skill. I think it's an art too. I really do. I think it's an art to do it
Yeah,
properly.
yeah, there's I often talk about the art and science of
Yeah.
storytelling, and
Yeah.
part of the art is sort of playing around with it a bit. It's sort of like it's like sometimes when you tell a joke, like you use comedians, you can tell a joke and you've thought, I've told it exactly the same way, but why didn't people laugh this time?
Yeah.
And because that's the art bit. It's
Exactly.
it's one or two words. It can be in the delivery, all that
Well,
type of stuff.
let's talk about this then, because I think it's interesting, and I read this part in your book that I thought was fascinating. You did some research where you compared stories written by humans and stories generated by AI.
Mhm.
And I want to know a little bit about that. And I want my audience to know a bit about that and what you discovered about how people responded to them. Because I think you had
Yeah.
three stories, one you'd written and two were AI generated. Is that
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. So when I first started to experiment with after people had kept asking me, can you use AI to help with your stories? I started to experiment, and I
Mhm.
would get onto ChatGPT or
Mhm.
Claude and go, I want a story in the first person around innovation. Can you write one? And it would write it. And
Sure.
this is when I was like, oh my God, that's good. It's like, oh, and
Yeah.
it terrified me that but it was good,
Yeah.
but it was missing something. And of
Yeah.
course, what it was missing was authenticity. And when you sort of go, that just doesn't seem right. So that's what it was missing. And it doesn't seem real because it's not
So,
real, right?
so stop there for a second. So was it missing um, a point of view that a human would give, or were the facts not there?
It was a bit of both. So no,
Oh,
it's
okay.
probably nothing to do with the facts.
Mhm.
Sometimes it was a bit of that doesn't make sense. So
Oh, okay.
like it
Okay. So
wasn't
you,
right.
okay.
But then sometimes it was just you sort of go, I don't think that would happen like that. So there was a big questioning of how it happened.
Yeah.
And then there was it was missing. There was feeling. There wasn't like real
Yeah.
much feeling in there.
Yeah.
So I decided as part of writing the book to put my hypothesis to the test. And my hypothesis was stories are okay. AI generated stories are okay, but they're not as good as your own story. So what I did for the book, I chose 6 different topics. So courage, innovation, whatever.
Yeah.
And I wrote 6 stories on
Okay.
each of them, and I got ChatGPT to write 6 and Claude to write 6, and I used a prompt that would make sure it
Was
was
more
personal
specific.
and
Yeah.
and yeah, it with around about 300 words. So I gave
Yeah.
them some guidance.
Yeah.
Um, then I got people to read that. So there was 18 stories in
Okay.
total. I got people to read these stories and rate them, and I got them to rate on different things, like engage, how memorable, how clear the story was, did it feel real? So I got them to rate it. They had no idea.
Blind test, right?
It
Blind
was a
test.
blind test.
Yeah.
Not only did they have no idea which stories were real and which were AI generated, they assumed they were all real. There was no mention that these were AI generated.
Oh, okay. You just had
And
those.
so, yeah, it just went out. And what it came back is that, well, first of all, 4 out of the 6 stories, my stories were rated much higher than the AI ones. In one instance, they were rated equal, which was like, oh, that's
Okay.
and then in one instance, AI story was rated better than mine. And when I did look at my story, I went, I did sort of think, oh, it's probably not my finest work. But the really interesting thing, which sort of proved my hypothesis, in my rating, the rating around clarity and the rating around authenticity were very much aligned. They were pretty much equal. For all the AI generated stories, the rating on clarity was high, but on authenticity it was really low. So there was a really big gap between, does this story make sense?
Hmm.
It's like people going, yeah, it sort of makes sense. Does it feel real? No. So that was my hypothesis, that they're okay stories, that
Yeah.
they sort of could be used to get the message across, but there's something missing. And
And
what's missing is
yeah.
authenticity.
So we were talking about I forgot what my premise was about, but when you say that yeah, so the not uneducated, but the person that's not really into this, into the differences, or the, is it
Yeah.
real or isn't it real? They would accept it more readily than someone who's starting to be discerning.
Yeah, and so they would accept it. And so
Yeah.
even I spoke to a few of the people that
Yeah.
provided feedback. And again, when I told them they were
Yeah.
AI, and some of the feedback, or a lot of the feedback got was these stories, and these were the AI ones,
Yeah.
they just sounded cliche. They just
Ah,
sounded so cliche.
okay.
And so it was sort of, yeah, I get the message, but cliche. I've heard it all before. There was nothing specific. So that's again the danger is
Yeah.
it's just and this is the danger if you use AI to generate your stories. You're sounding cliche, which means you're sounding boring. That's just a
Okay, so let me just ask you this from the AI perspective. When you did them in those three different uh, tools
Mhm.
or platforms, did you were you more engrossed in one platform than the other, or did each of those platforms have your avatar or your background or your all that stuff, or no?
No, they didn't. They didn't. So I went
Okay,
I went like almost blank canvas. So
blind.
I used ChatGPT and I used Claude as the
Yeah,
2 AI platforms. So it wasn't I wasn't, and when I mean I've got a paid version of ChatGPT that I
yeah.
use, but I use the free version with clean slate, so it wasn't using anything from me.
Okay.
Um
So would that have
but
made a difference, do you think?
So it would definitely, so you can say, okay, well, if you've got a paid one, it can start to
Yeah.
learn about you.
Yeah.
It can start to, and it will, that will definitely make a difference. So
Yeah.
in the book, I talk about, the how you can use AI. You can use AI to help find your stories. So,
Yeah.
I want to start, I need to find a story around innovation. Can you ask me questions that will draw out experiences that
Yes.
I've had in innovation, right? So you get that.
Yeah. But sometimes if I ask it to help me write something, um, it will say, I'll write this in your voice, Janice, with, emphasis on relationship building or whatever. Like, so
Yes.
it knows me well enough to do that. So I sort
Yep.
of, maybe I take too much um, credit or give it too much credit that it does, but then I have to start being more discerning myself. I've used that word a lot, but that seems to be the word that,
No,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
true. So the more, if you're using a paid version and it gets
yeah,
to know you,
yeah,
it will create the story that's going to sound more and more like you.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Absolutely. And as it gets better and better and better, that will definitely be the case.
yeah.
It still though puts in stuff that's not you. And so my thing is, once you get that AI stuff, first of all, it still makes up stuff. So
Yes.
you read the story, and then it might have said this happened, and when you've got to go, and it is discerning. That's
Yes.
absolutely
Yeah.
great description. You got to go, well, that didn't happen that way, but this happened. It happened this way. Okay, we'll say it that way. And then
Yes.
also, I recommend you say it out loud, because
Yes.
if there's words in there, to give you an example, this just happened a few weeks ago. And I think I was using my paid version. I think I was applying to go on a podcast, and I had to fill out this form, and it said, just give me two paragraphs on what you do. So I said, I teach people how to communicate more effectively through authentic stories. And I did some other stuff. And I often put it through ChatGPT,
Yeah.
mainly as an edit, like I'm terrible at grammar and stuff like that. So it's so mainly as a bit of an edit. But
Yeah.
it came back and it said something like, I teach people to communicate authentically through stories that bridge the gap between impact and trust. It was like, I didn't even know what that means.
Yeah.
The danger, and this
Yeah.
is the real danger, is people go, oh, that sounds good.
Exactly.
Like,
Yes.
that sounds really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're going, yeah, I use stories to bridge the gap between
Yeah.
impact and trust. And, then all of a sudden it's their tagline. It was like,
Yeah.
it doesn't even have those words ever come out of your mouth
Right.
like that? Then the
Right.
answer is no.
Yeah.
So you just got to go, don't
You have to
use them.
push
So
back. Yeah. You have to push
yeah,
back
so
for sure.
so using AI in that way can help you be really efficient when it
Yes.
comes to creating stories and creating content, whether it's stories or not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you don't want to. You still want it to be effective, and I say don't lose effectiveness over efficiency. And if we're just taking what AI gives us, it's starting to sound like everyone else.
Right. It's
And
true. And even
and
the
what?
even the patterning of
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
content
yeah.
and
It's
that too.
it's
But
always
yeah,
yeah.
and I like what you said though about reading it out loud, because when I read it out loud, I start to say it in my vernacular, which sometimes
Yep.
isn't. And that's when I say, no, 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 I wouldn't say it that way. So I'll change it or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's fascinating. Some people say, and I've said this, I'm not a storyteller. I have trouble
Mhm.
finding stories. What do you say to
Mhm.
professionals who believe they simply don't have stories to share?
Yeah. So first of all, as human beings, we are storytellers. That's the one
The
thing that
given.
separates
Okay.
from this given, right? We're storytellers. Now, I do acknowledge you might not be a really good storyteller. So
Okay. Fair
again,
enough. Yeah.
going back to what we talked about, it's a skill. Okay, it's a
Yes.
skill, and we can get better. But that common question is, I don't have any stories. And it was like, first of all, we all have stories. What they're thinking in their head is, I don't have any big, amazing stories. Like, I'm just normal. Like, nothing really bad has happened to me. Nothing amazing. I haven't climbed
Or
Mount
I can't
Everest.
think of it right now.
I can't
Right?
think of it
Yeah.
right now, right? So, but I actually walk people through I would not, I teach them the process
Mm-hmm.
of, first of all, being really clear on your message. So sometimes people would go, I need to communicate a message around innovation. I keep coming
Yeah.
back to
Yeah.
innovation. And they go, I just don't have any stories about innovation. I go, okay, just forget about the story.
Yeah.
And I go, what does innovation mean to you personally? Like personally, what does it mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll go, and then they have to really think about it. And they'll say things like, well, it means just trying something different. I was like, okay, great. What else does, and I keep pushing them, what
Yeah.
else does it
Yeah.
mean? And it could mean, well, it's just, it actually, what it means to me is, challenging the status quo, like literally asking, why are we doing that? And just because we've always done it isn't a reason. Okay.
Right.
So now that instead of this big innovation message, they're going, well, what it means to me is just trying something different, or challenging the status quo. It means both of those things. And then I say, okay, so can you think of a time when
Yeah.
you've challenged the status quo, when you've sort of said, why are you doing this? And can it be when someone said it to you, or when you've said it to someone else, or when you haven't said it to someone else, when you actually just went along with it because this is the way we do it, and you didn't have the courage to challenge the status quo. And so then they
Yeah.
will go, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
well, yes. But then they go, but it was just, oh, I remember doing that like when I was 15 and all my mates were doing something and I knew we probably shouldn't do it. And I knew there was a better way, but I just thought, oh, what the hell, everyone else is doing. So I just did it. And there's this story around that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go, but I couldn't share that. I couldn't share that story to my team. It was like,
Yeah.
that will be the most powerful story you can share with your team.
Yeah.
So it's helping them. To me, a lot of the work is, I mean, yes, I teach them how to do it, like the
Yeah.
capability.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of my work is giving them the permission to say that, taking them from, I couldn't possibly share a story like that at work. And it was like, you absolutely should stories like that at work because A, they're going to be the most engaging. They're going to be the most memorable. They really humanize you as a leader. So especially senior leaders, it makes you
Yeah.
real and human, which you've been talking about. They're your most powerful stories, but yet they're the most underutilized.
Yeah. That's brilliant, actually. That's really, really different. Um, so I know that I think you talked in your book about it might be part of what you were just saying that you teach them how, but you talk about the different places. I don't have the book in front of me, but
Right. Okay.
yeah, the like some
And
stories are for leadership, some stories are for,
yeah.
do you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about?
So
Yeah.
in the book, so I do, I talk about the four different types of stories you should
Okay.
share, and
That's it.
they are personal, professional, public, and parable. And I do love the fact that they
That's
all start with
okay.
P. That
Yeah,
was
say
very
it again.
deliberate.
Personal,
Yeah, so
public.
personal,
Yeah,
professional, public, and parable. And
right.
if we
That's it.
go, if I sort of quickly explain them
Yeah,
in
that's
reverse order. So a parable is like Aesop's fables,
yeah,
the boy who cried wolf type thing.
yeah.
That's a parable. Teachers use parables a lot. I would imagine that parents use parables a lot, right? So, and parables. I mean, if you want to see how effective storytelling look, is parables have
Well,
lasted
one of the
thousands and
biggest
thousands of years.
parables, one of the biggest books I ever read, most effective book I ever read was The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. And
Mm,
it's a best-selling book, came out in like 2008, and it was about relationships and about giving and whatever. And the first part of, and it's told in a parable.
yeah,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
and it's beautiful the way it teaches the lessons in each chapter as a
Yeah,
parable.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I talk in there's an example I give in the book. And so there's examples I give
Yeah.
of all of these in the book, but one is a lecture when I did my MBA. I did a MBA management and leadership like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can remember for that
Ah,
is a parable they shared about competitive advantage. So, and then there's the public story. So these are like a lot of the public. They're in the public domain. Like if you want to
okay.
story on teamwork, you just Google. Can you give me examples of teamwork, and you'll find them. So they can a lot of famous case studies
Yeah.
like public stories. Those stories are good, but sharing those stories, they can help you get the message across. But I actually I don't get to know you any better.
Right.
So your professional stories and personal stories, these are your stories. They've happened to you, or you've
Right.
experienced them like firsthand. Now, the
Right.
professional stories are all your work-related stories. These are the vast majority of stories we share. So, for example, you could imagine in a job interview, right? You're sharing lots of, tell me about a time when you did this. So there are a lot of professional stories. The personal stories is it didn't happen at work, but
Hmm.
what I teach people is how do you take that story that didn't happen at work, but you connect it to your work message.
Right.
And the science, we talk about the art and science of storytelling. Science shows that when a story like that, a personal story, it's you not only connect to the message, which is the whole reason we're sharing stories, but you connect to the storyteller. So I get to know you a little bit better, which the end result of that is it either fast tracks a relationship or strengthens an already existing relationship. So when you think about in business, you're in a sales situation, you're trying to pitch for work, and if you can share a story around a value that fast tracks that relationship, so they walk out going, not sure what it was, but I just really feel we could work with them better. You know what it was? It was the story you
It
shared.
was the
That's
story. Yeah.
yeah,
And it's funny, while you're talking about that, I thought of a story. And that's
yeah.
when it happens to me. It doesn't happen when I'm trying to write a presentation and I have to think of a story. It happens when I'm having a conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And so again, the power and the science behind the story is I can share a story with you and you will think of a similar story. It doesn't have to be the same, but it could just be
Right.
slightly similar, which means you're sort of connecting now me and my story through your story. You
Right.
don't even have to tell me your story, but it sparked something. So
And it builds rapport more easily.
it builds, yeah. So you think it can build rapport, trust really
Yeah.
quickly. So fast track a relationship or strengthen an already existing relationship. So can you imagine in a leadership role, or every time you share a personal story with your team, you're
Hmm.
not only getting the message across, which again is why we're doing it,
Hmm.
but you're strengthening the relationship with your team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. This is brilliant. So, a couple more questions. If from your experience working with organizations around the world, can you share an example of how storytelling improved communication or relationships inside a specific company?
Yeah, look,
Yeah.
look, you know what? I think some of the most powerful ones was it just really helped individuals, and I think if every individual can do it, it's helping them be a better leader and
Hmm.
communicator. And one example that I absolutely love is I worked with a company. It was about 12 years ago, and they were rolling out values, or communicating their values. And a lot of the work I go in is help you share personal stories to communicate the company values. And one of their company values was doing the right thing. So I take people through the process that I just said. Well, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to you? And this one woman that I was working with, her name was Anne, and we went through the process of what that means to you. And she came up with a few things, but she sort of said what it really means to me when I see that value is doing the right thing all the time. I think we're really good at doing the right thing when it suits us. It's just when it doesn't suit us, that's when that value's challenged. And I go, okay, so then I take it through a process. Well, where have you experienced this before? Where have you seen it? And of course I teach people like the framework of story, how to start your story,
Yeah.
how to end it, all that type of stuff. So this is a story she shared. So I'll just share the story and then get your
Sure.
reaction. Um, she said in the early 60s, my dad was a professional swimmer, and when he reached the point in his career that he was good enough, he actually tried out for the national swim team. And on the day of the meet, he was doing his race, and he got to the end to do the tumble turn, and he misjudged and he missed the wall. Now this was in the early 60s, so there was no sensors. They
Right.
had judges, but with all that splashing and kicking, he knew they wouldn't know if he touched the wall or not. So he had to make a split-second decision. Does he go back and touch the wall, or does he keep going? Now, he went back and touched the wall. Now, you don't really recover from a race when you do that.
Right.
And there was a whole lot of other reasons, but Dad never made the national swim team. And growing up as a kid, I would
Mm.
often hear Dad share that story with people, and people would ask him, have you ever regretted going back and touching the wall? And he'd always say, I've never regretted that, because if I didn't go back and touch the wall, I would have to spend the rest of my life knowing I did the wrong thing. And I'm sharing this with you because it reminds me of our value, doing the right thing. It is only a matter of time before we come across our own go back and touch the wall moment. And I invite you to consider what my dad would do.
That was
What does
huge.
that story tell you about Anne as a leader? What are you now feeling about her as a leader, for example?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind was that he was a man of integrity.
Hmm.
And in saying that, he's taught her to be a woman of integrity, and that's what it
Yeah.
says to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So through that story, and first of all, when she tells it, what you see in her is absolute pride. Like,
Yes.
she is so
I
proud
can
of her
tell.
dad.
Sure. Yeah.
And so what it is exactly, this isn't a company line she's towing, a
No,
company value she's towing the line for. She was raised this way.
that's
This
right.
is in
It's
her.
in her.
And
Yeah.
so I talk about stories giving you credibility.
Mhm.
You know through that story that she truly believes in doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, and she truly believes that. So first of all, she's going to live and breathe that.
Mhm.
Um, it, and of course, the subtle message is she expects me to do it. And if
Yeah.
I
And
do
think
do
about
it,
it before you
yeah.
make that decision, and you'll remember that story. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so she has said, like, this was 12 years ago. To this day, she still shares that story.
Yeah.
She sees it as part of her own leadership induction program. So anyone that comes and works for her hears that story. She has said to me, she goes, the amount of heavy lifting I can do in that 90 seconds, it just communicates who I am as a leader.
Mhm.
And she has said she's had situations where her team are deciding what to do. And she went, it sort of starts, sometimes goes down the path of, well, technically we don't have to do that. Like, legally, we're not obliged to do that.
Right.
And she said, someone will say, this is our go back and touch the wall moment. What's the right thing to do? And everyone sits there and goes, well, it's clearly the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, well, let's do it then. So
Yes.
that, can you see, that's
Oh, yeah.
values in action. And
Totally.
you know what most people say? Oh, doing the right thing is really important to me. It's it's like that saying, doing the right thing even if no one's noticing, and it's
Yeah.
all about, doing the right thing even when it doesn't suit us. It's like, whatever. Like, they're just words. There's
Yeah.
no credibility in that.
No, the
The
story means so
credibility is
much
in the
more.
story. Now,
Yeah.
of course, she's got to live through. Like, I talk about being congruent. Like, she has to truly believe that. She can't tell a story like that and then
Oh, no.
not
Of
follow
course.
through on
Of
it, right?
course.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Is that story in your book?
no, it's not in my book because it was in a previous book.
Ah, okay. But yeah, I didn't think I'd read that story, but
No,
it's a
no.
really good one for sure.
Yeah, and she, I still catch up with Anne, and
Yeah.
like, she's moved companies 3 times, so she actually no longer even connects it to a company value, she connects it to
Her
her
value.
value. And the
Yeah.
last time I caught up with her, she told me that sadly her dad had passed away
Mhm.
um, recently, and she did the eulogy and shared that story.
Of course she
So
did. That's
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah,
That's full
yeah,
circle. Wow, that's really great.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So, for entrepreneurs and small business owners listening today, where's the easiest place for them to start using storytelling in their communications?
Yeah, so I would say, especially, well, not especially, but for anyone, small business entrepreneurs, what are the values you want to communicate? Now, you might not have stated values like large
Right,
companies always do,
right.
but it was like, what do you want to be known for?
Mhm.
And be clear on that. And like, do you want to be known for integrity? Do
Mhm.
you want to be known for innovation? Do you want to be known for like exceptional customer service? Do you want to
Right.
be known as a trusted partner? Whatever it is you want to be
Yeah,
known for, be clear on that.
yeah.
Go through that process of saying, well, what does that? So I keep saying, oh, we're a trusted partner, but what does that really mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so once you're clear on that really mean, and then find stories to share about them. And yes, share your work, right? So the professional stories, absolutely have some of them, but your personal stories will be more powerful. And your personal stories of when you didn't live that value can actually be super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I did not live that value,
Hmm.
and the regret I have, and people will sense the regret when you share the story.
Sure.
So it's really clear. I work with an investment company in Vietnam, and I work with their entire leadership team. The CEO, CEO was an American guy, and he, part of them is they get investors in the room and they pitch to, for them to invest money in them.
Sure.
And he said we used to get up there with our PowerPoints and talk
Oh
about the
my God.
numbers and this is the return and the blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And he goes, he goes, it was even boring to me,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so I work with them. Actually work with them quite a while, and they completely flipped it to story. So they would have a handful of their executive team, and they would share stories around their company values. But he would share a story, and he called it my biggest mistake. And he'd shared it, and it was a professional story. It was about investment, but he shared the story about all the mistakes they made with this investment, just mistake after mistake after mistake. And he said initially I thought to myself, why would I share that story? Because they're going to think I'm an idiot and
Yeah.
never invest with us. He said the complete opposite happened. He goes, because by sharing that story of acknowledging I've made mistakes, they felt they could trust me. And he goes, there was also an element that you've learnt those mistakes, and that you made mistakes with other people's money, not our money. And he
Yeah.
said it just completely changed things. And so now their presentation is just a collection of stories.
And it was showing his vulnerability and how he grew from that, really, because he's
Yeah.
sharing it as a mistake that he made. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And I also think too, if you're a small business, you're pretty close to all these stories.
Yeah.
And so even if it is a professional story, it could be, even someone in your team that's done something, just even adding something like, I was really proud of what we did on that
Mm-hmm.
day. Or to this day, I am so gutted that we weren't able to achieve what we initially said we would. Can you see just
Of
adding
course.
one little thing
Yeah.
about how you felt can
Yeah.
make it feel now like more of a story as opposed to a case study?
Yeah. It's a lesson, it's oftentimes, and it's a vulnerable story, and it's a from the heart. It's from the heart.
Yeah.
That's what makes
Yeah.
the difference, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Absolutely.
totally see that. And I deal in relationships. And so I really resonate with what you said about when you start teaching people the storytelling skill and how you start to ask them those questions to bring it out of them, whatever. I think I do the same thing when I'm working with somebody on their LinkedIn profile or
Yep.
something that they have to do, and I'm trying to make them bring out what really matters to them and in their own voice show how they solve their clients problems and things like that, because
Yeah.
it's not about you, it's about them and what you do for them. And it for some people they have to really twist it around and hadn't thought about it that way. So
Mm.
yeah, it's fun when you can get into somebody's psyche a little bit and help them draw out what you're trying to get them to do.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
cool.
And
All right.
what I love too is helping them draw out those personal stories that they would
Absolutely.
never think of sharing. I was speaking to a guy the other day, and he sells innovation. Like he's all around process improvement. He goes into companies, like he's passionate about process improvement. And he shared a story like when he was a 5-year-old little kid, and I think he grew up in Canada, and it snowed, and he knew that once water started flowing through the snow, it would melt faster, and he really wanted the snow to melt. So he'd go and dig a little trench for the snow. And I'm going, that little story
Yeah.
about him being 5 years old doing that,
Yeah.
what it shows that process improvement
That's in him.
It's in him. It's in him.
Yeah.
But most people would go, oh, well, that's like, I'm not telling a story of when I was 5, and
But it's in his DNA.
it's in
Right.
his DNA.
Yeah.
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 That's amazing. Okay. I love it. Last question. If someone listening wanted to improve their own story intelligence starting today, what's one simple step they could take?
Buy the book.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Fair enough. And where can they buy it?
Look,
It's
you
a
can buy
good
it from.
read. I
Yeah.
encourage you
Look,
to.
I genuinely, this is like 20 years of my
I
life
know.
in this book. It's why, not only why storytelling, but it's how I'm teaching a repeatable framework, and I'm giving there's so many different
So many
examples in
examples.
there, like,
They're all- Yeah.
and for $20, I think
Yeah.
it's going to be, and yeah, look, you can get it online,
Yeah.
Amazon, or all the usual places.
Is it on your website too?
It is on my website, but it's got a,
link to the-
GabrielleDolan.com.
okay,
You've got it's just got to go through an extra links, but yeah, if
Oh,
you just
okay. So it's on Amazon too. Okay.
yeah, it's absolutely on Amazon.
Well, I do encourage people to buy it because actually I really enjoyed it, and I will read it again when I can highlight stuff because I just, skimmed through it, I do admit, but I love the stories. That's what stopped me every time, right? Was a story.
Yeah.
So
I'm not a big book reader. I in fact, there's very few business books I have got through because I think most of them, 2/3 of them are fluff. But so I write the book where you don't have to read it end to end. You
No.
can just dip in, dip out, and go, oh, I need to give a presentation next week, and okay, just go read a few stories in the presentation book, and read the chapter on AI to help you find stories, or so that you can dip in and out of it. So it's definitely not got to start and finish it.
Yeah, finish it all. Well, thank you. Thank you again for sharing your insights and reminding us that while technology continues to evolve, authentic human connection is still at the heart of meaningful communication. I think your work highlights something that fits perfectly with this show, that relationships grow stronger when we communicate honestly and share the experiences that shape who we are. So I'm so glad that you joined me today. And or maybe this will help people think more intentionally about the stories that they use in business and in life, because it's really a broad spectrum, and we just have to dig in and say, so what does that remind me of? What was I thinking at the time? And so on, as you did so clearly with the examples that you gave. So thanks, Gabrielle. Oh, and one more thing. You have a podcast.
I do have a podcast.
Yeah.
So yes, if you like listening to podcasts, which clearly you do because you're listening to this one, I do have a podcast. It's called Keeping It Real with Jack and Ral. I'm the Ral bit of that.
Yeah.
And we release an episode every Monday, and it's a sort of career advice, bit of, short 25, 30-minute, do a different topic every Monday.
And I bet it has a good sense of humor.
Yes, there's a lot of there's lots of laughs, lots of stories.
I'll start
There's a fair bit of swearing in it as well.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
If you don't, not too bad, but my mum listens to it.
Okay.
So if and we used to get in trouble for saying crap when we were growing up. So if my mum can listen to it and not be overly offended,
yeah.
Then
okay. Well, it's like I listened to Julia Louis-Dreyfus's podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And she swears like a trooper.
Oh my God, I love her. I love her.
And her mother comes on, her 90-some-odd year mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Anyway, well, thank you for being here and for your wisdom and your knowledge. And remember, to my audience, I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you do, please leave a review. We always appreciate it. And remember to stay connected and be remembered. If today's show inspired you to make a new connection, why not start with me? Head over to LinkedIn and connect with me. Be sure to let me know you are a podcast listener, because I select one listener each month who connects with me on LinkedIn for a complimentary profile audit. Don't forget to stay connected and be remembered.